to Maharaj Parikshit. This is verse number 5. 695. Okay, you know how to begin. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Tvam kripaya bhutya.
Tvam kripaya bhutya.
Tejasa mahimauchasa.
Tejasa mahimauchasa.
Justamisam gunaya sarvais.
Justamisam gunaya sarvais.
Tato Shri Bhagavan Prabhu.
Tato Shri Bhagavan Prabhu.
Tvam kripaya bhutya.
Tvam kripaya bhutya.
Tejasa mahimauchasa.
Tejasa mahimauchasa.
Justamisam gunaya sarvais.
Justamisam gunaya sarvais.
Tato Shri Bhagavan Prabhu.
Tato Shri Bhagavan Prabhu.
Tvam kripaya bhutya.
Tvam kripaya bhutya.
Mahimauchasa.
Tejasa mahimauchasa.
Justamisam gunaya sarvais.
Justamisam gunaya sarvais.
Tato Shri Bhagavan Prabhu.
Tato Shri Bhagavan Prabhu.
Yathatvam kripaya bhutya.
Tvam kripaya bhutya.
Tejasa mahimauchasa.
Tejasa mahimauchasa. Justamisam gunaya sarvais. Tato Shri Bhagavan Prabhu.
Yathatvam kripaya bhutya.
Yathatvam kripaya bhutya.
Tejasa mahimauchasa.
Tejasa mahimauchasa.
Justa isha gunaya sarvais.
Justa isha gunaya sarvais.
Tato Shri Bhagavan Prabhu.
Tato Shri Bhagavan Prabhu.
Yathatvam kripaya bhutya.
Yathatvam kripaya bhutya.
Tejasa mahimauchasa.
Tejasa mahimauchasa.
Justa isha gunaya sarvais.
Justa isha gunaya sarvais.
Tato Shri Bhagavan Prabhu.
Tato Shri Bhagavan Prabhu.
यथात्वं कृपया भूत्या
Yathatvam kripaya bhutya.
तेजसा महिमोजसा
Tejasa mahimauchasa.
जुष्ट ईशा गुणे सर्वे
Justa isha gunaya sarvais.
ततोऽसि भगवान् प्रभु
Tato Shri Bhagavan Prabhu.
Anyone else?
यथात्वं कृपया भूत्या
Yathatvam kripaya bhutya.
तेजसा महिमौजसा
Tejasa mahimauchasa.
जुष्ट ईशा गुणे सर्वे
Justa isha gunaya sarvais.
ततोऽसि भगवान् प्रभु
Tato Shri Bhagavan Prabhu.
Word for word. Yata.
Yata.
As.
As.
Tvam.
Tvam.
You.
You.
Kripaya.
Kripaya.
With mercy.
With mercy.
Bhutya.
Bhutya.
With opulence.
With opulence.
Tejasa.
Tejasa.
With prowess.
Prowess.
Mahima ojasa.
Mahimauchasa.
With glory and strength.
With glory and strength.
Justa.
Justa.
Endowed.
Endowed.
Isha.
Isha.
O my Lord.
O my Lord.
Gunai.
Gunai.
With transcendental qualities.
With transcendental qualities.
Sarvai.
Sarvai. All.
Tata.
Tata.
Therefore.
Therefore.
Asi.
Asi.
You are.
You are.
Bhagavan.
Bhagavan.
Supreme Personality of God.
The Supreme Personality of God.
Prabhu.
Prabhu.
The Master.
The Master.
Sukadeva Goswami, he's glorifying the Lord. Oh my Lord.
Oh my God.
Okay. Okay, because you are endowed
Because you are endowed
with causeless mercy,
with causeless mercy,
all opulences,
all opulences,
all prowess and
all
glory,
prowess and all glories,
strength and transcendental qualities.
strength and transcendental qualities.
You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead,
You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead,
the Master of everyone.
the Master of everyone.
Srila Prabhupada's purport. In this verse, the word Tato Sri Bhagavan Prabhu means, therefore you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Master of everyone. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is endowed with 6 opulences in full. And moreover, he is extremely kind to his devotee. Although he is full in himself, he nonetheless wants all living entities to surrender unto him so they may be engaged in his service. Thus, he becomes satisfied. Although he is full in himself, he nonetheless becomes pleased when his devotees offer him patram pushpam phalam toyam, a leaf, flower, fruit, or water, in devotion. Sometimes the Lord, as a child of his mother Yasoda, requests his devotee for some food, as if he were hungry. Sometimes he tells his devotee in a dream that his temple and his garden are now very old and that he cannot enjoy them very nicely. Thus he requests the devotee to repair them. Sometimes he is buried in the earth as if unable to come out by himself. He requests his devotees to rescue him. Sometimes he requests his devotees to preach his glories all over the world, although he is alone quite competent to perform this task. Even though the Supreme Personality of Godhead is endowed with all possessions and is self-sufficient, he depends on his devotees. Therefore, the relationship of the Lord with his devotees is extremely confidential. Only the devotee can perceive how the Lord, although full in himself, depends on his devotee for some particular work. This is explained in Bhagavad Gita 11.3.3, when the Lord tells Arjuna, Nimityam matram bhavam savasachin. O Arjuna, merely be an instrument in the fight. Lord Krishna had the competence to win the battle of Kurukshetra, but nevertheless he induced his devotee Arjuna to fight and become the cause of victory. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was quite competent enough to spread his name and mission all over the world, but still he depended on his devotee to do his work. Considering all these points, the most important aspect of the Supreme Lord's self-sufficiency is that he depends on his devotees. This is called his causeless mercy. The devotee who has perceived this causeless mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead by realization can understand the Master and the servant. Om Gyan Timirandasya Ginajana Salakaya Chaksunjalitami Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So this verse is interesting. Sukadeva Goswami is mentioning some of the qualities and glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One of the things he says, which is really the first thing he mentions, is that the Lord is endowed with causeless mercy. Although he is all powerful, he is all glorious, he is called Bhagavan. Bhagavan is described by the great souls as one who is full in all of the opulences that each one of us has some desire to attain. Some strength, some fame, some knowledge, some, what else? Beauty, some renunciation. What did I leave out? And that's the most important. That's the one we're all chasing after, right? Some wealth. So the Lord is full in all of himself, and he is the controller and the owner of all 6 opulences in full. But still, although he is quite competent to achieve whatever he wants to achieve, in the world is all powerful. Sometimes we can't see that he's all powerful qualities. One time, Srila Prabhupada was in He was in London, and he was asking his senior devotees to, I want to meet important people. I want to talk to people who have positions within the society. And so Chandramauli, one of his main secretaries, worked really consistently and was able to attract many persons to come to see Prabhupada, such as writers, composers, authors, musicians, people who had position, intellectuals. Some of those names, I can't remember all of them, but some of them were famous. We could actually recognize their names. At one time, there was a group of people who came, they were called the Mensa Society. And they were what you might call armchair intellectuals. They would find different topics, philosophical, scientific, and they would try to sit and discuss the topic from all angles of vision. They were trying to understand things through debate, through discussion, and that was their main focus. So Srila Prabhupada was speaking to them, and Srila Prabhupada was saying that Krishna, he is all powerful. There is nothing he cannot do. Whatever you can conceive of, and even things you cannot conceive of, he can do automatically. It's just, he has all powerful. All of his energies work according to his desires, and his energies carry out all of his work for him simply by his desire. Parasya Shakti Virahaya Suyate Bhaslavabhi Vigyatvala Kriyacha. And then one of the leaders, actually was the leader of the Mensa Society, he posed a question to Prabhupada, but it was a trick question. He said, if God is all powerful, can he create a rock he can't lift? Think about that. Can he create a rock he can't lift? So if you say yes, that means you minimize his lifting power. If you say no, then you minimize his creating power. So what's the answer? Now Prabhupada can't fool the pure devotee. So Prabhupada said, yes, he can create a rock he can't lift, and then he'll lift it. So, to kind of illustrate that even whatever you can conceive of, the Lord is one step ahead of you in everything you do. So here, it's interesting to note, because the opulences that are mentioned here, strength, wealth, fame, beauty, so many things, people are very much attracted to in this world. And we make it a policy to make our timetables to achieve some or more, or maybe many of these qualities or characteristics or opulences. And we call that, pursuit of happiness in this material world. So if you know a person who is, quite fixed, has a lot of these opulences, that person, at least in the material realm, is considered to be important or famous. And people maybe hear about that person, they worship him or whatever. But you might add another characteristic. If that person is not kind, although they may be powerful, they may have so many opulences, they will also be able to do many things, but they're not kind. They may be very much self-centered, egoistic, or whatever. You lose attraction for the person automatically. That anomaly or that bad quality kind of nullifies all of the other so-called good qualities. But here, you see Krishna, he has all of these qualities, but he's kind. So that quality itself endears the devotees to Krishna, that he is very kind. And what is the kindness? It's really illustrated here in this discussion, that he can do anything, but he gives the power and the intelligence to his devotees to carry out what he would like to see carried out. And the devotees do it and he gives the devotee the credit. Arjuna didn't want to fight on the battlefield. Krishna finally convinced him that it was the best thing for him to fight. But he said, even your fighting is not the cause of victory. But still, you simply become my instrument for carrying out my will in order for you, for the Pandavas to be victorious and ultimately take the throne. But ultimately your fighting is not. It is ultimately my will. Therefore, even if you don't fight, somebody else will take your place and get the credit. So what the Lord was trying to say, and clearly saying, is that, he already has his plan. And he uses his devotees to carry out whatever he wants. Prabhupada would say, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, if you study the life of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he traveled throughout the Indian subcontinent. He went down the western side from Jagannath Puri all the way down to Cape Comorin, came back the eastern side, came to Bombay, crossed over, and went back to Jagannath Puri. And it took him 6 full years to do that. And during that time, he spread the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra everywhere. And millions, that's a small number, millions and millions of people actually became attracted to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he spread the holy name everywhere. Practically, he made the whole subcontinent, India, at least at that time, Krishna conscious. So when the devotees in our movement heard that, they asked Prabhupada, well, if Lord Chaitanya could do that, then why didn't he just take Krishna consciousness and spread it all around the world? Why did he stop there? And Prabhupada said he left it for me to do. He wants to give his credit to his devotee. But the Lord is all powerful. He's like that. He can do that. There's a nice story in the Srimad Bhagavatam. I think it's in the 10th canto, right after the battle of Kurukshetra. Yudhisthira had been victorious. The Pandavas were about to take the throne. But in order to enunciate their victory, they had to perform a sacrifice, which was called the Rajasuya sacrifice, which is a grand sacrifice which challenges anything left in the world against the present presiding king. And if anybody challenges that, then they have to defeat that challenge before they can actually take the throne. And it requires great amounts of wealth and organization to do that. So Krishna was there, Yudhisthira was there, they were in Dwarka, they were at the assembly house, and discussing how they should proceed to carry out the Rajasuya sacrifice. While they were there was a messenger who appeared at the door. And the messenger seemed to be quite, overwhelmed with anxiety. He wanted to make a statement. So he was announced that there's a messenger here, and he wants to read a letter coming from the kings who were imprisoned by Jarasandha to Lord Shri Krishna. So immediately everyone turned their attention to this messenger. He read this letter, and the kings were desperately praying and asking for the Lord to intervene and save them, because Jarasandha was such a powerful king that he had destroyed all of the other opponents, and now he had captured all of these kings, and he was about to perform a human sacrifice. And the kings, knowing that the only one that could save him was Krishna, so they wrote this letter of desperation, please save us. So then it came to the assembly, and Krishna was thinking what to do. He knows what to do, but he acts like he doesn't. And so he turned to Uddhava. Uddhava is Krishna's cousin. Vasudeva is Krishna's father, playing the role of his father in this particular Leela. And Vasudeva has many brothers, and one of the brothers is the father of Uddhava. So Uddhava and Krishna are cousins. And Uddhava is a great devotee. His bhakti is really on the highest level. So Krishna turns to Uddhava, what should we do? He knows what to do. But he says to Uddhava, what should we do? And Uddhava says, well, my dear Lord, as long as Jarasandha is still alive, we cannot properly perform the Rajasuya sacrifice. It will not be successful. Therefore, our first responsibility is to eliminate Jarasandha. Everyone said, Jai, Uddhava, really intelligent. You have come up with the answer. And everyone was praising Uddhava's ability. But Krishna knew the answer. But he turned to his pure devotee to give the answer so Uddhava would get the credit. And everyone agreed, yes, this was the procedure. So the Lord does that. He empowers his devotees with knowledge. He empowers his devotees with abilities. He empowers his devotees with various types of intelligence. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Sarvasya Chaham Riti Sali Visto, Matar Smirtim Agyanam Pomanam Cha. If you want knowledge, I give you. If you want intelligence, I also give you that. If you want to remember something, I help you. And if you want to forget, that forgetfulness comes from me. They say also that those who are atheists, and they can explain their atheism sometimes in a very logical way. Where do they get that intelligence? From Krishna. But Krishna supplies the intelligence of those who perform various types of activities in order to achieve certain results. And when they're determined in that, the intelligence comes. But that intelligence is Krishna. And of course, the intelligence is either beneficial or not beneficial, depending on the desire of the person involved. But the whole thing is that Krishna is behind everything. You can't even remember your name unless he wants you to. That sounds like a very whimsical statement, but think about it. If Krishna wants you to forget, you can't even remember who you are. I remember I was at one satsang with many devotees, and this was a rainbow festival. I think I was the president of Columbus at the time. We did a rainbow festival. I don't know if you know what rainbow festivals are. It's the last vestige of hippiedom that is still somewhat circulating in the world, and they get together in summertime and they perform various types of activities, usually singing, dancing, drumming, and all kinds of other things they do. So we went, and one night we were sitting around the fire. They had a fire in one tent, and all the people were there, and everyone was asked to introduce themselves. So I went around the circle, and it came to me, I forgot my name. I said, my name is Radhanath Swami. And I realized I'm not Radhanath Swami. Oh. I caught myself, yeah, I said that. And it wasn't like I was thinking I should say that. There was no preconceived thought. It was just automatically came. And I realized, maybe I'm not him. So, I mean, you might say, you might need a little psychological help. But I realized that at that point I had forgotten who I was, and I said something else that wasn't me. I caught myself and I thought, boy, that was, Radhanath Swami was sitting next to me too. That was a little bit even more embarrassing. I was afraid to look at him when I don't know what he was doing, but he's very kind also. So, things happen like that. And I wasn't even old then. Imagine when we get old, we forget a lot of things. So, yeah. So Krishna's there, and he gives knowledge, he gives remembrance, he gives forgetfulness. He gives whatever you need. He says in the Bhagavad Gita, Rasoham Apsukunteya Prabhasmi Sayasurya Prabhava Sarvavedeshu Sarvavedeshu Sabdike Purusham Nishu. He says, I am the taste of water, I'm the light and the sun and the moon, I'm the syllable Om in the Vedic mantras, I am the sound in ether, and I am the ability in all living entities. So that ability is Krishna. We like to take credit for whatever we do or whatever we have, or whatever we are. But ultimately, everything is coming from Krishna. This is such a subtle aspect of our existence that it's imperceptible, seeable. But without the Lord's mercy, nothing can happen. Without the Lord's sanction, nothing can happen. But he works through his energies to facilitate our desires and give the results accordingly. But one who wants to serve him, then that devotee becomes glorious. And Krishna empowers the devotee to do wonderful things on his behalf. As is mentioned here, that the Lord sometimes appears in someone's dream and says, my garden is not so nice. Call Chandramauli Gopal, he fixes gardens very nicely. And Chandramauli comes, plants some nice squash, makes nice gardens, and then Krishna's happy. Anyway, that's a play on words, but anyway. The point is that whatever that ability, that quality, or that intelligence is actually coming from Krishna. Krishna says, I'm between every atom, I'm within every atom. One who knows the all-pervading and all-powerful aspect of the Lord, there's no other thing you can do than to serve the Lord. If you try to do something outside and try to become successful or happy with that, you may achieve something, but you'll never find happiness through that, because it is not the Lord's desire for his devotee. Though he'll sometimes fulfill your desire to achieve something or to do something, but the results are the happiness or the benefit that you perceive you will receive by that activity will not be there, because it's outside of the Lord's desire. As it says here, the Lord desires everyone to serve him. Why? Is he greedy? Is he proud? Is he needy? He says no. He knows that for our benefit, we need to serve him. So he puts himself in the position of being served, so we can benefit by serving him. Although he needs no servants. He is all powerful. So that is the mercy of the Lord. He creates so many situations in this world, and we think of different ways by which we can serve him, and therefore we get the credit, and we also gain the mercy of the Lord by making advancement where we purify our heart and ultimately come to becoming attracted and ultimately attached to the Lord and devotion. So that's his mercy. And one who understands that will simply understand that there is nothing outside of devotional service that has any real value, because everything works according to the arrangement of the Lord. And he's arranged for everyone in the material world to fail. Material life means to fail. What does that mean? What is the success of material life? The success of material life is to somehow gain something that is external to your actual existence. Some kind of material facilities, some kind of remuneration, some powerful position, some kind of relationship also, but is not centered around spiritual or religious principles. So these things can near, but because material means limited, material means temporary, and material means duality. Whatever is there that is apparently to be desirable, there's another side to that same thing. In the spiritual world, everything is absolute. Therefore, everything is good. Even if you fail, apparently, doing something for Krishna, at least the apparent failure is it didn't work out according to how you wanted it to, or came out with less quality, still you're successful, because you made an attempt to serve the Lord. The Lord is not dependent on whatever we give him to give his mercy. It's our enthusiasm, our desire, our eagerness to serve him. That is the success of bhakti. If we can always remember that. So what are the qualifications for performing devotional service? Simply sincerity, a desire to serve the Lord. That alone is success. And when one performs activities in that way, then the Lord is pleased. It's not so much the result, although we always want the result, to offer something nice to Krishna. Still, even if it doesn't come out, just like Srila Prabhupada gave us his own example. One time this was in New Vrindavan back in 1968, I think Prabhupada was there. So Prabhupada was having lunch, and there was one lady. She was cooking chapatis for Prabhupada, and she couldn't make chapatis. She kept burning them, put them on the grill, and all the black marks were there. When someone was running the chapatis from the kitchen to Prabhupada, and then Prabhupada would eat one after another, but they were always burnt and they were always black. And someone said, "Oh, Prabhupada, these are not so good." Prabhupada said, "Keep bringing it." Because Prabhupada could understand by his spiritual intelligence that she was doing everything she could to serve nicely. He was tasting her bhakti. He was understanding her eagerness to serve. Although the quality was not there, still, Prabhupada wanted that. There's another example where this was in Vrindavan, India. Devotees had met this one professional kirtan singer. He was quite good. He was also noted, and beautiful voice, knew all of the instruments. So they wanted to invite him to come and meet Srila Prabhupada. So they brought him. Prabhupada met him, and this nice exchange. And then the devotees asked, "Well, Prabhupada, can he sing?" Prabhupada said, "Yeah, let him sing." Okay. So it was one, I think, part of the morning program ceremony. So he started to sing. But Prabhupada detected that the man was proud. Simply by his singing, Prabhupada could indicate that he was more or less knowing he was good and he was proud of it, and he was expressing his music in that way. Prabhupada told the servant, "Tell him to stop." So the servant went over there and said, and the man stopped, and Prabhupada pointed out to someone who couldn't sing at all. I mean, he could carry a note. He said, "You sing." And so this boy, he was a little embarrassed, but Prabhupada asked him, so he started to sing. And the devotees were going, Prabhupada was like, because the boy, he had devotion. He was trying his best. He wanted to sing, but although he had no obvious qualities to sing, still Prabhupada chose him because he had devotion. Because he knew he would sing the best he could. So this is an indication how devotional service works. Of course, we want to make things nice. And that's part of to do something and do it in the best possible way. But the point is that one should understand that it's not the results that so much attracts Krishna, it's the endeavor that attracts Krishna. It's the bhakti that attracts Krishna. That's the desire to please Krishna that attracts Krishna. So Krishna chooses his devotees who want to serve him, and then he empowers them to do wonderful things, and they get the credit. And this is the Lord's special mercy. And this is a very beautiful verse because it actually shows how much, and Prabhupada ends purport a very interesting thing. He says, the devotee who perceives this causeless mercy between himself and the Lord, who has that understanding, can by realization understand the nature of master and servant. What it really means to be a servant means to act simply according to the desire of the Lord, and everything else becomes wonderful. And that's bhakti. That's bhakti, to push aside our own desires for whatever we want to achieve in life, and take time to serve the Lord in such a way that the Lord is pleased. And Krishna, and Prabhupada makes the point, Patram Pushram Phulam Toyam. And this is a very interesting verse. It's one of the most important verses in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna, what is Krishna asking for? He's asking for a flower. He's asking for some water, some fruit, leaf, like that. But does he need any of these things? He says there's millions of things in existence of these qualities, these items, and he's the cause of all of them, but he's asking for them. But then it says bhakti mam, with bhakti. When the bhakti is there, everything becomes wonderful. So the whole process of devotional service is try to please the Lord. And the easiest way and the most understandable way is to take shelter of the Lord's representative and take his guidance on how to execute devotional service. If we do that, along with learning how to cooperate with other devotees, Hare Krishna, which is the hardest thing in Kali Yuga to do, then, of course, the second one is a tough one. But still, if we can take sanction from the Lord's mercy and try to serve him and cooperate with others, the Lord said, you'll show your love for me how much you cooperate to work together to push on this Krishna consciousness movement. So this cooperation is actually a very high quality that is very pleasing to the Lord. Because the Lord, when the Lord sees the devotees are working together in a cooperative way to serve him, he empowers that and wonderful things happen. Prabhupada said, you may have a desire, I may have a desire, and you may have a desire to do the same thing. My plan is 90% good and yours is 80% good. And if he said we fight, then the whole thing is lost. Better to take the 80% plan and cooperate. And that's the point, not so much that the breakdown of communications or cooperation becomes because we all think we have the best idea. But cooperation is even higher than the best idea, even if it's not perfect, even if we have to settle for something less in order to get the job done. But ultimately, it's cooperation that is very cheap, that is very, what's the word? Pleasing to the Lord, like that. Because especially in Kali Yuga, it's a very difficult age to cooperate and do things together. But when that happens, things become wonderful and great things happen. Temples get built, devotees become empowered to preach. So many things. Well, everything we aspire for in developing our Krishna conscious process becomes easily available through the mode of cooperation. The cooperation is something that it's not so easy. We have to work on it. And that means setting aside our own desires for the desire to please the Lord, the desire to cooperate together. So the principle is what pleases the Lord, and what pleases the Lord is what pleases the spiritual master, who is giving us the guidance on how to please the Lord. This is a very, I think, one of the more interesting verses in the Bhagavatam, because the Lord has, he's powerful in all aspects, but yet he wants to give his devotee the credit. It's almost like a father, a father is always helping his son to grow, to do wonderful things, and to guide him on it. And if the son excels the father in the same activities that the father is doing, the father becomes happy. The son is successful, and successful. That is love. The father doesn't think, well, I taught him and now he's better than me. Well, who does he think he is, I'm in charge. No, that's just some egoistic. It's not a nature of a real leader. A leader when a leader sees his followers exceeding him in the same thing that he's teaching them, he becomes happy. Becomes happy. But the followers don't think I'm better than the leader, just like it. Even though one may be more powerful and more achievable than one spiritual master, one doesn't think like that. And there are examples like that. They always give credit to the Lord. They give credit to their spiritual master. They give credit to those who guided them, even though they may be more successful and more achievable than the persons that are guiding them. Still, they never consider that, and that is Vaishnava culture. The devotee always thinks, I can't do anything, but with the mercy of the Lord, I can do anything. So it's the Lord's mercy that makes everything happen, and when the Lord's mercy comes, when cooperation is there. When we depend on the Lord for everything, whatever we need to do, whatever we're trying to carry out, that dependence really empowers the devotee to do so many wonderful things. And the devotees become happy, and then the mercy continues in so many wonderful ways. So this is Krishna consciousness. And then, as it says there, one can understand by realization, not simply by theoretical ideas, what is my relationship with Krishna? I simply become his instrument for whatever he wants. Any questions, comments? Yes.
Wanted to know what is the limit of cooperation where it doesn't become compromise, especially when there are set standards.
Well, the communication precedes cooperation. And communication should always be in line with what you're trying to achieve, but at the same time with respects to all that are involved. If we argue and we fight, if we find reasons to go away, then everything is lost. So in Krishna consciousness, there's always a solution. In material life, because I have my desire and you have your desire, we clash. And then ultimately either one outdoes the other, or one goes away and the other one takes charge. It's more like that. But in spiritual life, simply by using our intelligence, using our abilities, and communicating how best we can work in such a way as to please the spiritual master. Because the Lord doesn't need anything. He doesn't need anything. He doesn't need our temples. He has many more temples in the spiritual world that will make our temples look like dog houses. He has everything. But if he sees that devotees are cooperating, he becomes pleased, and then he empowers them. So it takes some communication, some understanding, some sacrifice. So we have to sometimes sacrifice for the greater whole. I may be, Prabhupada said, you may be 90% right, and I may be 80%. But if we don't cooperate, then the whole thing is lost. So somehow or other, there should be some point of understanding that we need to work together. And that's very pleasing to the Lord. Sadhu Sangha.
Does working together cause displeasure to the Lord?
Working together in a cooperative way will cause pleasure to the Lord. And if you're working with many people, but you're fighting while you're working, it's not Krishna consciousness. Because there is always a way to perform an activity. You just have to use your intelligence, abilities, and see what is blocking that ability or that understanding on how to get the job done, you might say.
Well, what about when cooperation, when people lose sight of the Lord, even if they're devotees, even if they're
What?
attention?
I missed one word. What is that?
When the cooperation group loses sight of the Lord.
Loses sight of the Lord? then the mind becomes the foremost, whatever our mind says. But if we direct our minds to the instructions given to us by the spiritual master and by the Lord, then the mind becomes an instrument for understanding how to perform the activity. But when we lose sight of the Lord, then we're on what is called a mental level, speculative. It's right, it's wrong. And wherever there's two people, there's two opinions. That's a fact. We'll see that even in married life. Okay, is that? So yeah, keeping sight of the Lord means keeping His guidance as the means by which we perform the activity. There's a question back there by the door.
Yeah, thank you. You mentioned spiritual master.
Hmm.
I think that's a bit of a challenge in today's world, right? How do we identify the credentials of the spiritual master? Because it's got one aspect. I'm sure there are other aspects. So when we say spiritual master, and you can see in the world today that a lot of people who follow different spiritual masters and get lost as well. Maybe go in the wrong direction, right? Again, wrong direction is relative. Everything's relative, right? So how do you address that?
Well, a spiritual master is one who's working in disciplic succession, and he's carrying out the instructions of his spiritual master, who is in line with the instructions of the Lord. That is a spiritual master. People may pose themselves in that position, but if they're not connected with the activity, therefore you have a checkpoint. Guru, Sadhu, Shastra. What the spiritual master says has to be confirmed by Krishna through scripture, and has to be understood through historical evidence given by those who have preceded. In other words, the previous spiritual teachers. So this is called a 3-point check. So before